meat chickens and egg chickens. The same but different. So we're going to take a look at some meat chickens, take a look at some egg chickens, and I'm going to tell y'all from our experience what things are the most alike about raising egg chickens and meat chickens and what things are the most different. Thanks for joining us. So the first big difference between meat chickens and egg chickens is rate of growth. Meat chickens grow so fast that they can go from the size of a chicken egg to full grown in about 42 days. Not at full maturity, but attaining their full skeletal size and their full growth. This is a pair of meat chickens that is actually 26 days old. They are in production for poultry. Another really big difference is the rate of feathering. Actually, that's a little bit misleading. Really, meat chickens feather in normally like typical egg chickens. But remember how fast they grow? Well, they're growing so fast that their skin expands very, very rapidly. So in fact, while they're feathering pretty normally for a chicken, they're growing so quickly for a chicken that their feathering doesn't keep up with their skin growth. But for all practical purposes, to us, it looks like they feather in slower than other chickens. And they do vary in the rate they feather from bird to bird. We were just looking at one that doesn't have as many feathers along its back and wings, whereas there's an example of one that does. Here's some sitting beside each other that have had a totally different growth pattern in their feathering in. A really fun difference between our meat chickens and our egg chickens is that the egg chickens could have so many colors of feathers and patterns of feathers and so much variety, whereas our meat chickens, the kind we raise, the Cornish Shortcross meat chickens, they're generally always white, totally white feathered. But look at this variety of egg production breeds. In this group we have Barred Rocks like these, we have silver laced Wyandottes like that one, we have Black Orpingtons. There's 3 Black Orpingtons right there in front of us, and then the light gray one is called a Lavender Orpington, and this one is a Chocolate Orpington. The one right behind it is a Blue Orpington. But check out, we had a video bomber in that little Barred Rock there. But check out the one with the prominent red comb and prominent red wattles. That is a Chocolate Orpington. That is a rooster. His name is Chief Rocco Choco. So I'm going to call him Rocco. But it's so fun to see all the beautiful color patterns and all the beautiful colors of feathers, and we get that variety in our egg production breeds if we choose to keep different types of them. Whereas in our meat chickens, the Cornish Shortcross, they are always white feathered. There are other kinds of meat chickens, but truly the Cornish Shortcross are the standard, the benchmark for meat production chickens in terms of efficiency with converting feed to meat. So that's why we stick with them for meat. But with egg production chickens, you know, you can find any color feathers you want to out there. And this Barred Rock remind me of another unique difference between our egg chickens and our meat chickens. Generally with our Cornish Shortcross meat chickens, especially after about 2 weeks, we never see them do anything that attains any height at all off the ground. They basically are grounded. Egg chickens, on the other hand, can be very agile and can actually reach great heights in their hopping and getting a little bit of lift from their flight feathers on their wings. We don't see that in meat chickens at all. This is so cool. Almost 3 months old. Look how big Rocco's getting. He is the same age as all the young hens. These hens are called pullets. But he's going to be a very beautiful rooster. I hope he stays very friendly so that we can keep him around a long time. Look at all this feed. We have 9 feeders in this pen of just over 400 meat birds. So we have a total feed capacity in here of about 450 pounds. And in this group of 400 Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens, over 42 days, we plan on them eating about 2 tons of feed. That's about 4,000 pounds. So interestingly, it seems like they eat a whole lot more than our egg chickens do. But here's something that you might not have expected. When we actually run the numbers, they eat pretty comparably to egg chickens, but they convert what they eat into so much more growth than egg chickens do. They're just incredibly more efficient than egg chickens at utilizing their feed for meat production. In case you're doubting me, let me explain the math. We figure that our egg production hens need about 1/4 pound of feed per day to stay healthy and to stay in egg production when they're actively laying. And we figure each of these meat birds needs about 10 pounds from start to finish in 42 days to successfully produce poultry. So when we run the numbers, say for example, let's take 0.25 and multiply it times 42, because that's what we would expect our egg production hens to want, 1/4 pound of feed a day. And if we multiply that over the 42 days that the meat chickens are raised, because we're comparing the two, when we multiply 0.25 times 42, we get about 10.5 pounds. So in the 42-day span, whether we're feeding our meat chickens for meat production or whether we're feeding our egg production chickens for egg production, they're actually eating a comparable amount of feed. And granted, our egg production chickens are turning it into about an egg a day, but our meat production chickens are turning it into about 5 pounds minimum of poultry at the end of 42 days. So when all is said and done, really the two different kinds of chickens actually eat pretty comparably, but for meat production, the meat birds are so efficient at turning the feed into meat. That's what distinguishes them from egg chickens. Oh, look at all my chicken friends. It's like a little chicken army. So there is a difference in what meat production chickens and egg production chickens eat. In terms of quantity, they're really consuming about the same amount of quantity, but there's certainly a difference in what they're consuming. So in our production system with our egg chickens, we like to give them a mixture of a little bit of foraging on some grassy areas, and we like to also provide them some complete feed. So the feed that we give them is actually called a layer mash. So it's very fine. This is grain-based, and the protein percentage in it is about 16% protein. They really do like their complete feed, and it ensures that they're getting all the supplement of vitamin and minerals that they need, but they also do enjoy foraging. So we try to make sure that they have some grassy area to forage a little bit. Oh, let's pick up this random egg while we're here. We do try to encourage them to lay their eggs in the hen houses, but every so often they just lay their eggs where they want to lay them. Hopefully she's going in there to lay an egg now. Our hens also enjoy flock blocks. Our favorite flock block to get them is from Kalmbach. This one happens to be wild berry flavor, but the gals love Kalmbach flock blocks. So we like to keep at least one in their chicken pen for them. I like to keep it in a pan like that so that if we see rain in the forecast, we can either pick up the pan and take it inside under cover, or we can cover it with a bigger pan so that no moisture is breaking down that flock block. Oh my, another random egg. Let's pick that one up while we're here too. The big difference in the feed between the egg chickens and the meat chickens isn't necessarily the texture, although that is one of the big differences. Our hens eat that very fine layer mash that you saw. Our meat production chickens, we feed what's called a crumble. So it is a little bit chunkier, almost like a pellet, but smaller than a pellet. So between a pellet and a layer mash. And the biggest difference is actually the protein amount. I mentioned to y'all that the protein in the layer mash for our hens is at about 16%. With our meat chickens, we want them to have a much higher protein. So we feed the meat chickens a 22% protein throughout production from their day 1 to their day 42. Now with our egg chickens, we would start them in the beginning on the same 22% that we feed the meat birds, and we might feed the egg chickens that for about a month. Then we would step them down to a 20% protein. In those feeds, we always choose Kalmbach. And then when our hens get to what we call point of lay, in other words, a maturity where we know they're going to be laying eggs anytime, then we switch them from the 20% Kalmbach complete feed over to that 16% protein layer mash, and we love to get it at our favorite feed mill in the world. Shout out to Beverly Feed and Equipment in Beverly, Ohio. They're a huge part of helping us get the resources that we need for all of our chickens on farm. They are a connection between source and having it here ready to go for our chickens. A really big difference between meat chickens and egg chickens is the meat chickens, as they grow, they rest a lot more than egg production chickens. Egg production chickens seem always busy, checking things out, getting into something, interacting with each other. Once we get to about 3 weeks, moving on to 4 and 5 weeks toward day 42 with our meat chickens, this is very common. The main thing they want to do is rest. Other than getting their drink, getting a bite to eat, once they've accomplished that, they want to just lay down where it's comfortable and rest. And actually, that's what we want them to do, because their bodies are working hard even while they seem to be sitting there doing nothing. They are converting feed to meat at this point of their growth. So they are busy. They're just busy internally. They're not necessarily busy externally in their environment. So if you decide to raise meat chickens and you've been accustomed to raising egg chickens, be prepared for how much they're going to rest and make peace with it, because this is really normal for them. They're not lazy, they're not ill. Them resting as much as they do does not mean that there's anything wrong with them. In fact, it means that exactly what is supposed to be happening is happening. Their bodies are taking care of growing and producing meat. A final thing that distinguishes our meat chickens from our egg chickens isn't actually the amount of water they consume. That's pretty comparable, but it is the manure load that is produced. Meat chickens produce a much heavier and more concentrated manure load than we see from our egg production chickens. Honestly, I can't quantify that for you in terms of numbers, but I have the in-barn experience to know that there's a whole lot more compaction and moisture load when I'm raising meat birds than there is from the egg chickens. So it definitely takes more bedding material to keep the floor condition of our meat bird barn in good quality for our meat birds than it would take for what we need in any of our hen houses for our egg production chickens. I did mention water consumption is mostly comparable between our egg production hens and our meat production birds. Now with our hens, we want to guarantee that we're providing at least a pint of water per hen in their pen every day. We would expect them to consume about a pint of water per day. That's in mild conditions when things are going good. Extreme conditions, like extreme heat, chickens are going to drink more than they do in mild conditions. That applies to egg production chickens and to meat production chickens. Some other differences for us here on our farm between the meat birds and the egg birds is that we might keep the egg birds for about 3 years, whereas the meat chickens are only here for 42 days. And obviously, the huge difference is from our meat birds, we get top quality poultry, and from our laying production chickens, we get top quality farm fresh eggs. In our opinion, as poultry farmers, the most difficult difference to manage between meat chickens and egg chickens is that meat chickens generally are much less able to tolerate temperature fluctuations than egg production chickens are. So that makes it really challenging as a producer to keep the ambient conditions really comfortable for them all the time. But that's the number one task as poultry producers that we need to accomplish when raising Cornish rock cross meat chickens, is to make the ambient conditions comfortable, because that gets the most success for us in poultry production. Basically, on day one at hatch, when we move them in, they really want ambient temperatures at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to raise them for 42 days, and each week they want that ambient temperature to basically step down about 5 degrees Fahrenheit until we get to a bottom of about 70 degrees Fahrenheit when we're at the end of production, that they want the ambient conditions in their pen. So it can be a challenge to make it 95 degrees on day one, make it step down 5 degrees Fahrenheit each week for them, and make it feel like 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit out at day 35 to day 42. So that's the biggest difference between egg chickens and meat chickens for us as producers, and our biggest challenge. Let me know in comments if there was anything in this video that surprised you about the similarities or differences between egg production chickens and meat production chickens. Y'all, thank you so much for supporting our channel. It is growing. And thanks for hanging out with me for kind of a lengthy discussion on similarities and differences that we've found in different kinds of chickens through our poultry farm. So similarities, they're all chickens. They all produce wholesome food. They all like to forage and like to feed on grain. They all can be sources of wholesome food, whether that is top quality poultry or whether that is farm fresh eggs. They all need their basic feeding and watering and sheltering needs met every day on a regular basis without fail. They all can be raised in small flocks on homesteads and help people be self-sufficient in producing their own food sources. Or the products from them can be sourced directly from farms or at stores for people to have access to nutrition produced by poultry. But there's definitely differences in their growth patterns, their feathering patterns, their feeding patterns, their watering patterns, and their activity patterns. So that's the difference in raising meat chickens and egg chickens that we've experienced here on our small farm. It's an independent, small family farm. We pay for everything up front for our operation, and then we market what we produce to clients in our local area by word of mouth. And honestly, the demand is so big that we can't keep up with it, and we don't want to expand. So we're actually at a crossroads where we're probably, by the end of this calendar year, 2025, going to scale out of production agriculture poultry and production agriculture eggs. But we've learned so much doing it, and we're brainstorming ways to keep our farm a farm even once we exit out of poultry. And we just love sharing with y'all what it's like, rural life, farm life, and just being a family trying to produce great food. So let us know, especially if y'all are raising chickens, let us know if you are raising meat chickens And if you aren't raising meat chickens and you love great poultry, please seek out a chicken farmer. If there's any in your area, I promise you, it will be the best poultry you have ever eaten. And likewise, same with eggs. If you can, bypass getting them at the grocery store. Those eggs are good too. They're just not as fresh as what you can get from a farmer, right from their farm. So if you have the connections to seek out where you can source eggs directly from a small farm, best eggs you'll ever eat. And bonus tip on that, if y'all can grow some cilantro and some rosemary, like out in your yard somewhere or in a container on your deck or your porch, farm fresh eggs with grass-fed butter and with cilantro and rosemary. So try that out sometime. Let me know if you like it or not. Thanks for watching, y'all. God bless you. We hope you have an excellent day.